Loving on those who hate me, I found joy. Raising babies with an angel on earth, I found worthless. Saving dollars on a rock in space, I won't kill for gold. No. No one can tell me that it's over. I know you came back from the grave. And I want nothing if it pulls me away. You give me life, Lord. Hey, you give me life now. I've got purpose. Oh, I feel love.
Watch out, we got a kid.
Oh, somehow we get there. Yeah. Ain't no way's gonna pull me straight. I lay it all on you, Lord, yeah. I'll wait in the hands of a father who loved me. I found joy. Watch the babies and the growing on earth. I've seen the Lord. Hey, midst of my darkest days, I won't waste. Oh, I won't waste. No one can tell me that it's over. I know you came back from the grave.
Oh, the
And
joy.
I want nothing if it pulls me straight.
Yeah, don't.
You
It's like a
give
minute
me
late anyway.
life,
So by the time you see it, it would be. Okay, tell us when you're ready to transition.
You give me
Are we live
life
right now?
I've got purpose.
Okay.
Welcome to the Q Show, everyone.
Q show 2.
Q Show 2.
Q2.
And happy Friday the 13th.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it feels like a Friday the 13th. I want to do a test to see if anything can actually go right on the show. If you recall the last show, we had more than one epic problem with technology.
Yeah.
Today, we actually have our commandant of the keyboard over here, Marisa, who is taking charge and making sure everything's working correctly because I got fired from that job. So,
Welcome, Marisa.
so
All right. So,
what have you been up to, Brian?
Well, it's just, trying to get this Elevate finished up. A lot of firmware, a lot of reviewing factory presets. So, yeah, that's been fun.
Well, for that, and I think so. A lot of times, people don't realize what actually goes into the process of creating like a factory preset, or boy, right now we're really learning bug testing. So looking for problems before you actually launch the product.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say for you, when you get your Elevate, update your firmware.
Yes, please do.
Because you discover it's a lot of work because you're trying all sorts of weird things and whatnot. But we'll get into that in a later show. Today we're talking about.
What are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about Elevate preset basics,
Elevate.
and we're going to do a deep dive into the gain block. That should be fun.
That's a mystery to me, and I think I'm responsible for some of these presets.
And we'll wrap it up with some Q&A at the end. So please send us your questions during the show, and we will answer them at the end.
Yeah, if you ask now, we'll see it on our chat. So talk to me. We have the Elevate. We have presets. What are presets?
Well, first, maybe we should. Did we have any questions from last week that we need to answer?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, yeah, most definitely. I think.
Well, where are they?
Now you're asking all the right questions.
Yeah. Maybe we answered all of them.
I think so. I think we got looking at what I got. I think we're okay. So we're deep dive into presets.
All right. Well, then let's let's go to our new segment.
We want to do.
Yeah, we'll just skip right to that.
We'll skip right to it.
We'll skip right to it. We've got a new segment where we're gonna answer your questions again because you weren't paying attention the first time. And look, we're just having a little fun with this. So please, if we're answering your questions again, we're just having some fun. Don't get upset with us. But this is a new segment that we like to call FaQ'd Up. So, and this is a twofer because we got 2 questions from the same person, both of which were actually answered in last week's live stream. And so, look, we understand that, when you're watching this stuff, you probably just kind of skip through.
Popped into the show a little late.
Yeah, maybe skipped ahead just to hear the demos. And so,
Didn't set your alarm clock so you could listen to us. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't want to listen to the whole thing. We get it. And no hard feelings. First question was, when will Elevate be available? Chris, I kind of vaguely remember hearing you talk about this last week.
So, not to get myself in trouble and mention any names, but there's, certain companies that sell musical instruments that we're partners with, and they're kind of, looking for cool and exciting new things to launch as they go into their month of guitar happiness, and that's all I can say. So, with that being said, we're gunning for September 1st.
September 1st.
Assuming, of course, that there's not like, a massive line of ships offshore at the dock.
Yeah.
But that's its own problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gunning for September 1st. Realistically, we should have them here prior to that. And, and part of the game is there's, a limited supply. So as what typically happens, and I guess it's a good thing to kind of warn people about it in advance. If you really think you're going to want one of these, I always tell people you better go get it right away because, part of the joy of what we do is we're related with a lot of artists, a lot of influencer content creators, what I like to call trusted influential opinion leaders. But they'll send me a text, 3 weeks after something comes out and says, "Hey, I really got to get one of those." And I'm like, they're all sold. They're all gone. And that's probably what's going to happen with this first run. Realistically speaking, just talking with some of the buyers, I expect that we'll probably have none here once they arrive. They're pretty much going to ship out same day. So yeah, it's go September 1st. Put it on your calendar. Here's one to put on your calendar.
Yeah.
And that's the day you're going to want to look for the official launch.
And the next question we have is, does Elevate include power amp and or preamp profiles? And
it's the anti-modeler.
Yeah, we spent several minutes talking about this last week.
But it's worth going over again.
It's worth refreshing people's memory on this. So Elevate is not a modeler. And we did not set out for it to be a modeler. In fact, we were calling it the anti-modeler.
Well, and there's a reason for that. It's not some cheeky baloney, oh, here's our trademark, the anti-model. I don't even think we're going to do such a thing with it.
Yeah.
It's really has more to do with, there was a theory of mind, and this is worth talking about. There's a theory of mind, and as I point out, billions of dollars have been spent convincing people that if you want that 1979 Marshall JMP1 sound, you either have to get them a 1979 Marshall JMP and take it to the tube amp doctor, or this device that's created a virtual perfect digital copy of it. But the truth of the matter is, even if you were to get it, is that really the tone you want? If you bought someone's preset pack, is that exactly the sound of, and which one of those JMP ones? It's in a way, it's the head chasing after the tail. Because if for those who've never played through a JMP one, how would you even know what it sounded like in the first place? So it begs the question, are we trying to keep old gear alive, or are we trying to create something that allows the power of digital to fall into the hands of ordinary people so they can create the sound they want? And I was unconvinced to begin with. Sorry, I'm going on and on, but I remember, because Brian can attest to this. The first 10 modes I gave him, as we'll tell you later, were models of amplifiers, where I went and painstakingly modeled amplifiers. Looking back now, I realize how foolish that was, because now I get it. If I want a sound, the ability to dial that sound in is more important than how I dial the sound in. So the modeling can be a distraction, actually.
Yeah. It's just an extra step in trying to achieve the sound that you want. I mean, for a lot of us, we have a certain sound in our head.
Right.
And there's no amp in particular that's going to reproduce that.
Right.
And so if you're trying to achieve that sound through using amp models, you're never going to get there. So you want a way where you can just dial in that sound to get that sound in your head, or to get a sound that you hear somewhere on a recording somewhere, which, as we found during this process, is a lot of times achieved through, let's say, unconventional means.
Yeah.
Where, some strange combination of gear was used that would be difficult to reproduce for the average person. So we wanted to create a way for you to get to those sounds more directly.
Yeah, and looking back on that now, because I have access to plenty of digital modeling equipment and whatnot, because it's, at least in part, I'm a guitarist, so it's a part of what I do for sure. I've discovered there's a struggle in just getting what you want, right? As I'll let my secret out, I'm actually recording kind of my own little album right now. And in that process, you kind of have options or alternatives that you can use. So I have the pick of the litter in terms of modelers. But I've discovered that doesn't really help me. It's neat. It's fun to play with. It's almost like having your own virtual, playground of stuff in a closet somewhere. But it doesn't actually help me accomplish anything in terms of just being able to get from A to B, right?
Yeah.
And so you can get so lost playing with this stuff, or confused by it, in my case, most of the time, that you don't actually get what you set out to do. I cite the example of I was just trying to play one simple thing on one song, and it took me 3.5 hours to program the equipment. And that 3.5 hours later, I'm pulling my hair out, what's left of it, saying, "Hey, come on, guys! It's is this too complicated? I could have spent 3.5 hours practicing for the show we're gonna do, but no, I spent 3.5 hours mucking around with the interface trying to figure it out, only to, in frustration, finally download the app, have to upgrade the firmware, and whole 9 yards. So there's this, minefield in between you and what you have to do." And that's personally been my experience. Now, not everybody's like me. There are technical people beyond my capabilities. Although, man, I've built my own AI server. I'm a pretty capable technologist, actually. So it shouldn't be rocket science, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And in the process of recording, the ability to reach over and have an intuitive interface that just gives that to you, without all the complications, is just awesome. So as I was kind of explaining to Brian the other day, I'm talking to the audience, the power of being able to just go, this is the sound that I want. Just touch a couple buttons, dial it in, and I get exactly the sound I want. Now I'm focused on getting the take right. And if I spend 2 hours, it's 2 hours perfecting that part and getting that take right,
Yeah, so Joe asked, regarding the anti-modeler moniker, your preset names do indicate that you're trying to model certain iconic tones. How do you reconcile that? Or how is what you're doing different than modeling? Well, I'd say we're not trying to model amps or effects or speaker cabinets.
Right.
We're not modeling gear, other pieces of gear. What we're trying to do is create a more direct path to achieving a certain sound, whether that's the sound in your head or the sound that you hear on a recording, without having to go through that intermediate step of like, what pieces of gear or gear models do I need to put together to get there?
Yeah,
I hope that makes sense.
It gets rid of the minefield. That for what it's worth, because a lot of the presets I've programmed myself, and I can say so. First off, when we relate to the sound of something, what is it that we relate to? Oh, I really relate to the sound of what the amplifier on Dire Straits' Money for Nothing. Well, I hate to break it to you, the microphone actually fell over during that recording. It's not even the sound necessarily of what, in fact, most of the sounds we hear are not even the sound of an amplifier in the room. It's the sound of an amplifier with a type of microphone aimed at a specific angle, and all this stuff has been simulated too.
With a certain amount of post-processing.
Yes, thank you. With a certain amount of post-processing that an amplifier in a room couldn't even do if it tried.
Yeah, and so you're trying to figure out what you need to put together to get that sound.
So the question
can be daunting.
Yeah, the question becomes: do you want to play around trying to recreate a signal path that you kind of can't, or maybe you can? I'm not saying that modeling can't work. It can. I'm just saying it's really complicated to get from A to B.
Yeah, I mean, if you like modeling, if you're comfortable using a modeler, then you should just continue to do that.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it.
There are plenty of products that will allow you to do that.
Yep.
We wanted to do something different because we felt like there are a lot of people out there, especially younger players, who are not familiar with a lot of the gear that has been made over the decades and don't want to climb that learning curve and just want a more direct path to getting the sound that they want.
Now, I'm an older player, and I don't want to go through the learning curve either. But yes, to that point, it's reducing the complications. If you just want to have a sound that sounds like something, you don't have to sit here figuring it out. It becomes relatively intuitive and fast. That's the big one. In moments, you can have the sound you're after. And the cool factor there is, geez, I must have dialed in 20, 30 sounds by now. And you're able to, of course, save them and develop presets and whatnot. So if later on down the line, I decide I actually want to go out and perform this thing, all I need is a couple of elevates, in my case, because there's usually 2 guitar parts. And we can sit down and actually have a relatively realistic thing. We can recreate the exact sound that I'm recording right onto the DAW.
Yeah.
So that it would be a cakewalk to do that. Try to do that with the tonnage of gear. Now you've got to build a pedal board or 2. Get your amplifiers set up, mic them correctly. I mean, you're still going to have to do all that. All I'm arguing is, in the case of the Elevate, I can just plug 2 of them in and go play. And we go right through the PA and sound fantastic. So it's being able to get from point A to point B is one thing, but being able to recreate that later, if you're a performer, now not everybody is, but if that's what you want to do, man, the power behind that is just incredible.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in then.
Let's do it.
We're going to talk about. I'm going to give you a quick overview of how the presets work, and then we'll dive into the gain module I think that was requested last week. So first, I just want to kind of define some terms so that we're all speaking the same language here. A parameter is what you would expect. It's a setting that controls one aspect of the sound. So if we can bring up the overhead shot here. So like on the gain module, the master gain, that's a parameter, okay? That's easy enough to understand. A block is what we're calling a single effect module within Elevate, such as the compressor or the reverb. So each of these buttons here control one block.
So compressor, pre-EQ are blocks, gain is a block,
right?
Gate, etc. Got it.
Mode is what we're calling a mini preset for parameters within a block. So, for example, if I go back into the gain block again, you see master gain first, but then the next time I press it, you'll see the gain mode. And you can select from one of several predefined modes that give you, various different tones. And then that's all you'll have access to within that block is master gain in the mode. If you want more access than that, access over all of the parameters, then there's a custom mode where you can deep dive into all the parameters that are available within that block. The next thing is a preset. So a preset is, as you would expect, it's a stored configuration of all parameters and modes. Also, within each preset, so we actually have an A and a B, which we call a variant. So within each preset, there's an A and a B, and you can toggle between them
So
with
like
the recall.
clean, dirty.
Right, and so it's sort of like having two presets in one. So somewhat analogous to like having a two-channel amplifier, being able to switch between, a clean and dirty channel. But you can set these up however you want. There's no restriction. The only thing they have in common is the preset name.
Right.
Other than that, all of the parameters can be different between the A and the B variant. So speaking of presets, so there's two different kinds of presets. There's a factory preset and a user preset. Factory preset, as you would expect, is configured at the factory, and you cannot override it. And you can't delete it. You can edit it and save it into a user preset.
Right.
But other than that, you can't modify it. And then a user preset is, fully customizable however you want. So let's see. Next thing that we should probably go over is just showing you how to use the presets real quick here. So I'm cheating a little. I'm looking at the user guide. So I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything as I covered
looking at
this
it
stuff.
over his shoulder.
Okay, changing presets. There's two ways to do that. One is you use the preset up and down foot switches. This queues up a preset, and then you activate it by pressing the recall button. And then successive presses of the recall button will toggle between the A and the B variants for that preset. Okay? Easy enough. But you can also use the knob. You can use the knob when you're in the preset mode. You can use the knob to scroll among all of the presets and then press the knob to recall it. And you can also press the knob to toggle A and B.
That's for those of you who don't like to touch the same thing with your fingers that your foot is stepping on.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll notice that when you're using the foot switches, the text is displayed, in like double high, what we call double high characters. But when you're using the knob, it shows it as single high and also shows you which preset number you're in. It's the same thing. It's just being displayed a little differently. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how the blocks work. So to enable a block, I guess at first I should say, like, by looking at it, you can kind of tell what's going on. If the LED is on, that means that block is engaged or enabled in that preset. And if it's off, then it's not. It's bypassed. You enable a block by just touching the block button.
It's a good time to point out how it is that you work your magic there. It's not a button, actually.
Yeah, it's actually capacitive sensing.
So there's no
touch
button that goes bad.
There's no physical button. So yeah, it'll never go bad. So you'll notice that this LED is blinking to indicate that this is the currently active block. Like, so what is being displayed on the display is corresponding to this block. And then to bypass the block, you just hold it for 1 second, hold the button for 1 second, LED goes out. Now that block is bypassed. Also, you'll notice that when I change anything in this preset, so if I make a block active or something like that, the save LED comes on to remind you that you have changed something and you may want to save it. Let's talk about top level parameters now. So you notice in the pre-EQ that I just activated the low, mid, high EQ levels comes up. And this is one of what we call top level parameters, meaning it's not in a mode. So these are independent of the mode for that block. And it's always going to be the first thing that shows up. And if you have a screen like this where there's multiple parameters, you can move between them by pressing the knob. And you'll see, hopefully you can see that. There's a little underline showing which one is active. But yeah, it's as easy as that. And so I mentioned modes. So if I press the block button again, it goes to the mode. And so I should note that not all blocks have top level parameters. So some do, some don't. But in this case, there were the top level EQ levels. And then the next press of the pre-EQ button goes to the mode. So here's where you select a pre-configured set of parameters or a mode, or you can customize it however you want. So if you want to, you can select from, like in this case, there's different types of EQs that you can select from, or you can go custom. And then if you're in the custom mode, by continuing to press the block button, you'll step down into the parameters that you can adjust for that block.
So it can be as simple as or extensible as you like. It may be worth noting too that if you're going through and you find something that you want to use and you choose it, and although you may have said it, if you choose that particular mode, it turns it into custom parameters for you, and then you can tweak it further.
Well, just selecting it will choose it, but if you want to actually import that mode into the custom settings,
right,
you can press the knob. And it'll ask you, do you want to make this the custom mode? If you select yes, now you'll see these are the parameters that were in that mode, and then you can tweak it from there.
And so changing it like the pre-EQ is as easy as just going, I want a 4-band now, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't even have to press the knob if you just want to select it. So
yeah, I gotcha.
You just go to the mode, and now you're 3-band. 800 hertz.
So each one of the blocks is more extensible than just the one thing, yeah.
So at any time when you're editing a preset, if you want to see like, where am I? What was this before? You can press the compare button, and it will it'll revert to what it was when it was saved the last time. And so if we were playing through it right now, you could hear the difference. Since this block was off before, it just it doesn't show you the other value because it wasn't on before. But you'll see that LED went out because it wasn't on in the saved version of that preset. So let me get out of compare. So if I were to come into the gain and change, let me get back to the top level here, change the master gain. And then when you compare it, you can see, that was the last value. And then to save a preset, you press the Save Exit button, and it'll ask you, what do you want to do? Okay, we'll save all the changes. No, we'll just take you back to where it'll do nothing and just take you back to where you were before. Undo will revert all of the changes to the last time you saved the preset. And then New will copy all of your edits to a new preset. So like if you were to start with a user preset, make some changes, but you don't want to override it.
Right.
you do want to maybe save that as a different preset, then you can use the new option here to do that.
One of my personal favorite functions.
So in this case, I am going to just undo, and that takes me back to the saved version of this preset. So that's the basics of using presets. So now let's take a deeper dive into the gain block.
Haul out my Kiesel.
So while Chris is getting set up, I guess I'll talk about a little bit about kind of the architecture of the gain block.
I have to admit I'm kind of excited for this because a lot of the presets I just made by experimentation and not actually understanding what they did.
So the gain block has 3 gain stages, and each of those have a tilt EQ in the front of them.
What is a tilt EQ?
Okay, I'll get to that. So it's
Okay.
a tilt EQ followed by a wave shaping function, or if you're not familiar with that term, it's a more elaborate version of a clipper. So just in the way that like a tube is going to shape the waveform, we've created a proprietary wave shaping function. And so there's 3 stages of that: tilt EQ, wave shaper, tilt EQ, wave shaper, tilt EQ, wave shaper. And then all of that's followed up by post tilt EQ, which
So it's kind of like having 3 like preamp sections on like
it's
a tube or something.
I mean, it depends on how you want to look at it. So if you want to think about it like it's 3 preamp stages, or
Right.
2 preamp stages and a power amp stage, or an overdrive pedal followed by a preamp stage followed by a power amp stage. I mean, these are all wave shaping functions,
Right.
with some amount of EQ before or after.
So then arguably I could have like a couple of preamp stages on my tube amp and a pedal in front, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
So you can kind of, you set it up however you want to try to achieve the sound that you're going after. So you asked about the tilt EQ. What is a tilt EQ? So tilt EQ is it's a EQ function that just tilts the entire spectrum, either up or down by a certain amount.
Right.
And it's conceptually it's relatively simple. You don't see it very often because it's not exactly straightforward to implement, especially in the analog domain.
Right.
I used to hear a long time ago. You used to see it occasionally, but you didn't see it much within the past few decades. But I like to use them because they sound relatively neutral. You're not like boosting it any particular frequency. It's more of an even,
Right.
smooth change across the spectrum, and it's a single knob.
And basically it's just leaning lower or higher in frequency.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Which I have to say, again, having made a lot of the factory presets, that was really a big part of shaping things precisely. It turned out I had to use less EQ. The more I understood and used the tilt function, it simplified kind of the way, if you will, I have to quote unquote, the raw amplifier type sound would sound to me.
Yeah. So first thing in the gain block is the master gain. So master gain does what you would expect it to do, but the thing you should know about master gain is that it actually, whatever parameter you set this to is divided equally among the gain stages.
Gotcha.
Right? So if you were to put in, say, 30 dB, it would put 10 dB to each of those gain stages.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I'm just going to set this to the custom mode so we can see all the parameters. So the first part gives you access to these 3 gain stage sections. You press the knob to cycle between your selection here. So on the first one, you can select which gain stage you want to adjust: pre-1, pre-2, pre-3, or post. And so for each of those, you can adjust the amount of the tilt. This is in dB per decade, I think. I'm cheating. I'm looking at the manual again. And it doesn't say in the manual. I believe that's dB per decade. And then the amount of additional gain to apply before that wave shaping function.
And that can be boost or cut gain.
That can be boost or cut. So this is going to be in addition to the master gain control, right? So if you set the master gain to 30 dB, it's going to give 10 dB to each section. And then if I set this to 3 dB, it'll add that 3 dB to that 10 dB. Or I can set it to minus 5, and it'll subtract it from that 10 dB.
Right.
And so this is a way to make a particular gain stage either accentuate the effect of it or diminish the effect of it. Generally, I like to keep these fairly close to 0 dB because I like to have the gain distributed. It just results in a more, I guess I'd say like a more complex sound,
right,
because you're using all of the gain stages equally. But if you want something that is more, a simpler sounding overdrive, like you're trying to get a sound similar to, an older vintage amp where maybe there's only like one tube stage that's being overdriven, or a pedal or something where there's just a single stage that's being overdriven, then you can dial back the gain on a couple of the stages, right, and dial it up on one of the others to, push the clipping more towards that one stage.
Right. And it's cool because you can do some, really, getting way out there. You can create things that sound like fuzz and all that.
Yeah.
Whole 9 yards. Yeah.
And then on the post EQ, so you have a post tilt and a post gain. So this is kind of useful for balancing out the overall tone, because generally you're going to be, not always, but a lot of times you're going to set a positive tilt before each of the gain stages. And then you'll want a negative tilt after to kind of just rebalance the tone. And then the post gain will help kind of let you normalize the gain. So, because you want it to be similar to your other gain modes that you've configured.
Right.
All right. So that's essentially the way the gain stages work. So let's go to the next menu. All right. So here, I guess I should have mentioned.
This is cool.
The wave shaping functions can be asymmetrical. Again, I hesitate to use the word clipping because that's kind of overly simplistic, but the function itself can be asymmetrical, which you're probably asking, well, what does that mean? Essentially, the more asymmetrical it is, the more even harmonics you're going to be adding to your sound. And we've given you two different ways to do this. And we like to use them in combination to some degree. So the first way is the asymmetry control, and that actually changes the shape of the wave shaping function to make it more asymmetrical. So if you don't want it asymmetrical, you can just dial this all the way off, and it'll just be symmetrical. If this and the bias is set to 0, then it'll be completely symmetrical, only odd harmonics. So to make the wave shaping function itself more asymmetrical, you can increase this value. The more you increase it, the more asymmetrical it gets.
Which has a cool effect that seems. I always thought it sounded more stereo.
Well, and we'll get to that
Yeah.
when we start talking about the stereo part of this. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Now you'll be able to hear it if you got headphones on or a set of stereo speakers.
Yeah.
That'll be kind of cool.
So the second part of this is the bias, and that just adds an offset to the signal before it goes into the wave shaper, which also results in asymmetrical clipping. It's just a different way to do it.
Does it mimic like tube biasing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. And this you can actually set positive or negative. The negative values actually get kind of weird and kind of nasty sounding, but sometimes you might want something like that. I tend to like to use a little bit of bias and then asymmetry of 50 to maybe 75%, somewhere in there. Now, this is the really cool part. There's a stereo control that you can set either center or spread. And let me explain how this works. So the gain block will split the signal into two channels, and it applies the asymmetry. It inverts the asymmetry on one channel. Okay? So that results in a kind of subtle stereo effect. Maybe even not. I mean, I wouldn't say it's not an exaggerated stereo effect, but it can be subtle to maybe a little less than subtle. It's pretty cool because it doesn't sound gimmicky.
It kind of sounds like two amplifiers. Is my 2 cents.
It does kind of sound like 2 amps.
It's almost like you're reamping yourself while you're playing live, which is a little freakish actually initially.
Yeah.
You start doing it. Yeah. Because it sounds like you layered yourself.
Yeah.
But you didn't.
So what you do need to be aware of when you use this is, so obviously it has to be set to spread for that to work. But also the asymmetry and or the bias has to be set to something other than 0. And preferably something, significantly more than 0. So because it uses the asymmetry to create the stereo effect.
So they work in conjunction.
Yeah. So if you have the asymmetry and the bias set really low or to 0, you're not going to hear the effect of it. So you do need to have those turned up a little bit to hear it. And I guess before we go further, I'm going to turn the gain up a little bit. And
does it go to 11?
It does, but I'm going to turn it up more than that. Okay, let's see where we're at with this. All right. And so go ahead and just keep going. And I'm going to play with these a little bit while you're doing that.
I feel like I need to break out some AC/DC vocals. This is centered, and this is with the stereo. Yeah, there There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely hear that. And so, yeah, so far this is with no pre or post EQ on it.
Right.
This is just the gain block that we're using, and we have the default cab on.
Cab
but that's it. All right. So the next part is the squish. This sort of
squishy,
ambiguously named parameter. Okay, so the squish is a distortion triggered compression. So it allows you to kind of constrain the amount of distortion you want. So if you want something that's like just as high gain as you could get,
right,
you probably want to just turn this all the way to 0. But generally, I like to set this, on the lower end, unless it's like something I want to be pretty clean.
Right.
Or even like semi-clean. For something that's kind of semi-clean, this parameter is your friend.
Right.
So you can dial this up, and it will constrain the distortion to a certain amount, regardless of, if you swap your guitar out, you have hotter pickups or something like that.
Right.
Or you're playing louder or whatever. It just helps you control the amount of distortion you're getting from this particular gain setting.
So it functions sort of like an automatic gain control.
Kind of, but it's not really affecting your level.
Right.
It's just controlling how much distortion you're getting, because it's changing the amount of gain that's going before each of the wave shapers.
Got it. And it's doing it dynamically.
Right, and it's doing it dynamically, and it's doing it across all of each gain stage.
Okay.
Okay. So go ahead and play. I'll turn this up so you can hear it.
Whoa. Oh, it is squishy too. It feels squishy. Yeah, very good.
All right. And then we're back to the top. So that is everything in the gain block. So things to be aware of is the tonality of the gain is going to depend a lot on your pre-EQ.
Right.
And so you'll notice we added both pre-EQ and post-EQ.
Right.
And those, so if you're running completely clean, or have the gain block bypassed, those two controls are going to function the same way.
Right.
But with the gain on, and especially with higher distortion levels, they have very different effects.
Oh yeah, and you can get different harmonics relative to yeah.
So we gave you two completely different EQs for that, and you can use the pre-EQ to kind of shape the character of the distortion.
Right.
And then the post-EQ to kind of shape the overall spectrum of what you get at the output. And the combination of those two gives you just a ton of power over what kind of gain tones you want to get. And that's pretty much it for the gain.
One trip through the gain section.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it really wasn't that complicated.
Well, there's so much more. The one thing I will suggest, though, just for fun, swing through the different blocks. So, when you're building a preset, a lot of times, there's this temptation to want to control every last thing. But one of the things I have to say is in developing factory presets, just being able to go through. So when you go through one of these, modes here, it's actually changing all the underlying parameters for you. So what we did is we went through and said, hey, what are, the top 10 or whatever it was, basic food groups of gain tone would the average guitarist want to use, right? So it's not meant to be a definition for everything, and by all means, experiment with custom. But by doing this, you instead of dialing in all the individual parameters, pre-1, pre-2, you can actually go through and get pretty darn close to what you want right out of the gate, right? So the mode is actually changing all the underlying parameters.
Right.
Does it change master too, or master stays the same? Okay.
Master is independent.
Yeah. So, for example, bright clean, as an example here. So if we roll through the... you can kind of hear the difference. And it's as a starting point, this really simplifies setting that up. So mind you, without changing any other parameters, it takes you in several different directions, adjust all those things for you. And if you decide, hey, that's pretty close to what I want, hit the button. And then what it does is, as we hit the button, it asks us, do you want to make that the custom mode? And if we do, now it loads all those parameters in for you. So that's the only other thing I could point out about it that is really useful if you're trying to get a specific sound. Start by just rolling through the modes, and 9 times out of 10, you get so close to what it is you're after that you just kind of don't have to, sit there trying to figure this out for hours. It's a simple way to do it. I always like to say it's like you go to the optometrist. The optometrist says, can you see better with number 1 or number 2? Same thing. Is your guitar tone better with number 1 or number 2, or 3 or 4 or 5, depending upon the individual mode? And that gets you to, again, A to B quickly. So, I mean, again, to kind of reply to Joe, saying, hey, what's the difference between a modeler? Well, the first thing we would do is pick a cabinet or a head or something, put it down to try to achieve the same thing. Here, I can just roll through, 6 or 7 parameters and quickly get back to, get the tone I'm after. The beauty of that, I like to tell the story of, I think I said it last time too, talking to Vernon and just creating that rush sound and doing it so fast that it even blew his mind, and easily just hitting a couple buttons and tweaking a couple of parameters. So it's I don't know, the marketer in me always wants to say, hey, it's giving the power of digital to the average guitarist, but it simplifies, what has been so complicated, while giving you a fantastic tone, so that's powerful.
Let's roll through the rest of the modes. Where did we leave off? I think here's where we left off.
Bluesy. Nuno, where are you? Greasy. That's not really metal. So you can see how quickly we just went through dozens of styles, you know.
Yeah.
And again, these are the basics. You can go a lot farther with. Is that all of them, or?
No, I got 2 more.
Oh, jeez. Fuzz. That's greasy, man.
All right, just for fun.
It does go to 11. Yeah, a lot of mileage out of something, again, that we haven't messed with pre-EQ. We haven't touched the post-EQ. Haven't touched the cabinet or any such thing. This is just the gain stage. So it gets back to that simplicity. Why is it the anti-modeler? Because if I just want to get a sound, I can roll through quickly and get so close with just the gain function. In fact, that's how a lot of that was quickly the method I adopted for making factory preset happen. Just start out with the gain. Get as close to the thing you're thinking of with just the gain and tweaking those parameters in. Add a little bit of sprinkling of pre-EQ, post-EQ, which actually that is an exciting topic in and of itself because you've done some cool stuff with that too, especially when you can actually connect the two together so they function in conjunction with each other. But again, that's a topic for another day. But it just goes to show how quick you can go from A to B. And if I just want to get a certain sound, I don't now have to take someone's sample of what I had hoped would be what I'm after, but it's not quite, and now go in and try to tweak it or have some mysterious underlying method. Oh, I have to sample the thing for a half hour with a aux box or whatnot. And that's perfectly perfectly fine. I mean, again, for the folks who want to do that and build like perfect, by all means, not. And some of those are great. I've heard them; they're fantastic. So I don't make the argument that somehow these are it's a wrong way of doing things. It made a lot of sense when we started, and when guitarists started out in the world of modeling. What were we most familiar with, right? And the answer is, well, we're familiar with amplifiers. So it made a lot of sense to take that approach initially. But this is kind of handing the digital toolkit off to the average guitarist. You know, I am an average guitarist by all means, and so I've never had a tool like this. You know, that I could just craft the sound I want. So again, back to the anti-modeler. That's what we're talking about. It's that getting there quickly. That's magic. You know, I've never had anything like this in my life.
Yeah,
I'm customer number one.
I mean, how else could you achieve these same tones with $500?
Yeah, it's not possible.
Yeah.
It's no way. There's no way you can get everything you get out of this box for $500. No way.
Yeah.
Maybe if you spent $1,600 and then hired somebody to make presets for you.
All right, so let's go to some questions that have come in while we've been screwing around here. Okay, Joe says that he really liked the new neighbor Neuron pedal, especially in terms of feature set and tones in such a small pedal. How does Elevate improve on that technology? Okay, so Neuron was also a 3-stage, 3 gain stages.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it also used the tilt EQs.
Right.
Between the gain stages. It had an adjustable tilt EQ that you remember.
Which I used, yeah, extensively.
But it also used tilt EQs before and after the gain stages.
Right.
So, and it also used the sort of squish function.
Right.
And it also had a certain amount, although lesser amount, of asymmetry.
Right.
So that's the way that they are similar. So the way that this has improved on that is so I've created a new wave shaping function. So it's different than what I used in Neuron. The one I used here is actually a smoother wave shaping function, so it allows you to get a better variety of cleaner tones as well as the overdrive tones.
Yep. And some of the clean tones this thing does are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
The tilt EQ here you can adjust at the individual level, and you couldn't do that in Neuron.
Right.
The asymmetry on this is a new implementation.
Right.
And you can adjust it on this. You couldn't do that on Neuron. The squish functionality is similar, but here it's adjustable.
Right.
And I think that's it. So in a lot of ways, there are similarities, but a lot of stuff's been improved, and you have a lot more control over that sort of deeper level
for sure
stuff.
you can do things with this, that I never pulled off with the Neuron pedal. So it packs a bigger wallop, I'll say that much. It's almost like you have 3 Neuron pedals all set in front of each other. You can do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and you can actually get you can get a lot of gain on Neuron, but I think you can get more gain with this because just because you have more controls, and so more places to add more gain if you want to.
Yep. Mr. Antpre, what types of reverbs are integrated, and are the algorithms coming from any known? Because he clearly has a angle he's working here.
Yeah,
come from any known new neighbor pedal.
Yeah. So the reverb, and we'll probably cover this in a future live stream in detail, but the reverb is based on the wet reverb. It's a new algorithm that I've tweaked to allow it to have create a broader range of reverb types.
Right.
So it's a single algorithm, but depending on how you set the parameters, you can get a lot of different sounds out of it.
Yep.
Make it sound like different reverbs. So when you're in the reverb, we've set up modes that kind of emulate different types of reverbs. But it's not using different algorithms. It's just the way in which it sets the parameters. And this reverb does a better job, especially with the smaller rooms. So the wet reverb couldn't create like a really small acoustic space very well. It's really good at like large acoustic spaces, but not so much at small. And so this version of the algorithm really does a lot better job on smaller spaces, as well as the larger spaces as well.
Which I noticed that when in working on factory presets. There were times when the recording that I was, in essence, trying to recreate the sound of, I would notice sometimes it just had the lightest bit of reverb, but it kept the lusciousness that I'm kind of used to with a wet reverb. So I did notice that.
Yeah, so we've set up modes for like a really small dark room, a plate, chamber, studio, hall, cavern, and then what I call dreamy. It's just a big modulated reverb. But of course, you can go into custom parameters and do whatever you want with it. If you're familiar with the Illumine or the Immerse, you can get in there and tweak parameters just like you could on those pedals.
Justin, Jonathan Ford is the user Jonathan Ford says, is the user manual available yet?
Well, it's almost done. It is not available yet, at least not publicly. I don't know when we're going to have that posted.
Probably about the same time we launch, September 1st. And partly because it's kind of, even though we're doing a podcast and showing great detail of what the product actually does, it kind of gets ahead of all of our, the more material that's out there. It gets ahead of our dealer base, whom we really like to partner with in launching the product. So, even doing the podcast, we're a little bit ahead. But it's partly to drum up excitement, A, and partly B, to kind of help everyone understand the difference between what we're doing and kind of what exists today. So, which is not a conversation. Yeah, you can't make an advertisement that, I have 100 stories I could tell, and you don't want to hear them all. I don't even want to hear them all. Of stuff that I've used that didn't work over the years. As guitarists, we all know this. So I'm down a little side path here, but if something doesn't work, it just doesn't come with you to the next gig. I won't use it again when I'm recording. I lose my patience because if you're anything like me, you don't have time to figure out what works. If you're serious about what you're doing, then you need stuff that kind of gets the job done. So again, it's in partnering with our partners. I don't want to get so far ahead of the game that we've launched this. Actually, and there's as my friend Travis Toy, who is the steel player with Luke Bryan, says, I intentionally didn't read your manual. He said, because I wanted to try to do it without using the manual. And so in that process of doing that, we actually, again, learned a thing or two about how simple this thing is. Even if you don't have a manual, even if you don't have any of that, it's actually kind of intuitive. You can work your way around this if you never read the manual. So you'll there are folks who will look at it. Of course, we're going to do a set of instructional videos prior to launching the product. So on the day that it comes out, you'll have the manual, but you'll also have, I'm going to be doing, 60-second videos on here's how you program it to achieve a certain guitar tone in 60 seconds. Cause that's part of the game. My challenge is, can I do it in 60 seconds? Mm-hmm. So start with something and I have to pull it off rapidly. And that's part of the, that'll all be part of the launch activity that comes in September. We're working on it all now, though.
So James asks, how come it was decided that users will have to press the recall button first before the preset changes? Why not just have the preset change as soon as the preset button is clicked? Well, there's a very good reason for that. So
let's say we're over here and slow dancing in a burning room, right? If I want to get ready for the next song, Comfortably Numb, I can hit it while I'm still playing. If I could play it.
Well, actually, what if your next song is not Comfortably Numb? It's like halfway into your set list or something.
Pride and Joy?
Or
Cliffs of Dover?
Cliffs of Dover.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't have to go through and hear
every other thing.
Every other thing.
I'm still playing. Sorry, I have to do this while keeping my mouth near a microphone. Excuses. Okay, so now if I want Cliffs of Dover, Yeah, I'm not gonna try that. I met Eric once. That's as close as I'm ever gonna get to sounding like him. But so yeah, and the thing is the thing with that is you only get that song when you're ready for that song, but you can queue up the next song for yourself. So if you're playing live, especially, that lets you get to the next thing. I mean, I've had some frustrating experiences where I needed to change. I won't mention names of the guilty parties, but I went to change over between one preset and the next, and some unexpected results occurred in the midst of a very quiet song. I was suddenly incredibly loud, and so this is going to work with you if you want to go to whatever it may be. Here, I'll do something that I can do terribly. Purple Haze, right? I don't get to Purple Haze until I turn Purple Haze on. So if I'm again back here doing the Hell's Fight. Why do I keep doing that badly? And now I want to get ready to do Purple Haze. There I am. And there I am, just that quickly.
Yeah.
So, it lets you kind of get ready. And then if you're hitting the solo part of a song, typically with the factory presets, we would just, if we did nothing else, then B is just 3 dB louder, if you need it to be louder with the factory presets.
Yeah. Unless there's like two different guitar parts.
Yeah. If it's like
distinctive.
Clean, dirty, the good example of this is, not Cliffs of Dover. Why? I like how Brian put me on the spot there.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Just having a little fun.
No, it's fun to hear all the things I can't do.
and look, it's you'll probably set up set lists and have everything in perfect order, right? So why would you need to worry about it? Because everything always goes perfectly, right?
Right. Hello, just a pinprick. There's no pain you want to see. Okay. If already mentioned, that might be for our FaQ'd Up section. And yes, we forgive you, Jeremy. It's okay. As a former U.S. Marine, my drill instructors always said, the only dumb question is one you don't ask. PC/Mac programming component.
Yes. In fact, it'll also work on Linux. We have a web app we're working on right now. It will be available when the product launches. It will need to run in a Chrome browser or Chrome or Edge or Opera.
Yeah.
Because it is a web app. So you don't have to install anything.
No installing.
And you'll always have the latest version.
And it's even going to come with a USB cable so you can plug it in.
Yeah. And so it'll work on PC, Mac, and Linux.
Yep.
But no smartphone app. Sorry.
And actually, for what it's worth, it is kind of a smartphone sort of thing. But I think I don't know what to think about that.
I mean, who knows? Who knows what the future holds?
Who knows what the future holds?
But when we launch the product, it will have the web app for a desktop.
Yeah, and I got to say, one thing I can say is if there was no, I'm going to be doing 60 seconds how to get a tone. That should kind of tell you all you need to know. It takes you about a minute to figure out how to do it just using the surface of the product. The web app will make it faster, no question. There's no doubt about it. But it's so easy from the surface of the product that you might actually, I mean, personally, it would have been fun having it when I was doing all the factory presets, but where I'm at now, it's neither here nor there. For the most part, I think most people are going to wind up just playing through, all the factory presets. If I kind of go back and to all presets again, and if I just roll, in fact, I just used Thrill Is Gone the other day, so it wasn't not exactly what I wanted, and so I changed the gain on it, right? So I cranked the gain up, and I'm like, oh, that's closer to what I'm after, that particular thing, which is roughly that tone. And so I'm like, sweet. So I was recording. I didn't want to have my reverb on. Turn the reverb off, and the echo, And Bob's your uncle, as we always say. So I hit my save button and I'm saving a new preset, and I'll just name it anything for now. Again, super simple. Like I don't need a web app to basically get that one basic sound I was trying to get. The cool thing is, though, now that I've renamed it, Oh Her Rill Is Gone One, on the web app, I reach over, kick that bad boy on, and rename it to the sound that in that particular case it was. I don't remember the song.
Yeah, the web app does make renaming easier.
It does make renaming, because renaming is the one thing that, you guys have been there, you've done that. But the web app, you plug it in and you just name it whatever you want. All the parameters, all the custom functions will be available on the web app. We've seen
and there's nothing hidden in the unit, so the web app doesn't give you access to anything that you can't access directly from the unit itself. The only things that the web app gives you in addition are the ability to upgrade the firmware, and the ability to import and export presets. So, you want to talk about the preset packs?
Oh, well, we're going to do preset packs. Hey. Which means I have to do a lot more work prior to the launch date. But no, preset packs. So you'll be able to purchase preset packs. We'll actually have some available for you for free.
Yeah.
But we're going to make preset packs, and we'll actually have some of our trusted influential opinion leaders will no doubt make some preset packs for us. They'll be, cool and interesting preset packs from who's a fellow that's working on some for right now?
Drew.
So Drew, who I think built the
Drew. See if I'm going to try not to butcher his last name. Schlesinger.
Yeah. I probably just butchered it.
Or I did. One of us did.
At least we're equal partners in crime on that.
Drew has made preset packs for a lot of people. A lot of the older rack units.
Right.
I'm blanking on all the names, but he's done and he's still active. He's doing preset packs for a lot of plugins and stuff now.
Yeah.
And he also created a preset, some of the factory presets for Illumin.
Right.
As well as a preset pack for Illumin. Did a fantastic job on that. So we're really looking forward to the preset pack that he makes for us.
Which actually, it's cool for there are some people out there who utilize they use it with keyboards. So a lot of times with vintage keyboards, you kind of need some sort of outboard effects and whatnot. That's actually where, you oftentimes, especially when you're trying to do some recording projects and whatnot, you take a vintage thing and you can either sit there and endlessly play with plugins again, or just dial in the actual sounds you want. Well, this preset pack is going to give you the capability to kind of extend beyond even the simplicity of guitar. It'd be great for keyboardists, and we're going to do an acoustic preset pack for all you acoustic players out there. A bass preset pack for bass players, and those I think we're going to make free, so you can just pick one up, and if you pick up an Elevate, you get the preset pack, so you can use that with your instrument. I think those will import as user presets. How many user presets?
Yeah, so you can do up to 400 user presets.
Dang. I don't even know 400 songs.
Yeah, and remember, each of those have an A and a B, so it's sort of like 800 presets. So you'll have plenty of room to import these preset packs.
Well, and there's the whole, even when you do all that, how do you keep track of everything? And that's where the list, again, for another day, list functions come in, which helps you to kind of either get a set list together or put your favorites. We did, in our case, the example favorites, because we quite honestly couldn't decide for ourselves what order should we put all these factory presets in. There's no good answer, and I excused myself from it immediately. I said, I'm not the right person to answer this. Well, it's okay. Who really is? It's different for every person. So we gave you the ones we think are our favorites, or I should say, we gave you the ones we like the best ourselves, and you can build your own lists and whatnot. It's an extensible unit. But that said, I feel like we've gone on and on and on. And are there any more questions?
I think we've overstayed our welcome.
We've overstayed our welcome on the internet. We're getting kicked out. So next week, we'll be back next week, Friday. What are we going to talk about? I guess we'll have to decide in the meantime.
We'll figure it out.
But Friday...
Let us know in the comments what you want us to...
Friday, June 20th.
Yeah, let us know what you want us to cover next week.
And we won't always do these live, but right now we're kind of having fun with it, so why not?
Yeah.
All right. All that said, let's sign off. And thank you so much for coming by, for asking questions. There's no wrong question to ask, even if we put you in the FaQ'd Up section. It's because we love you. Oh, and yeah, give suggestions for what you want to know. The whole gain thing came from a user request from the last one. So thank you, and take care.
Peace.
Until the next Q show.